Presento ora la professoressa Pacini Ketchabaw, che è professoressa di educazione della prima infanzia presso la Facoltà di Scienze della Formazione Western University in Ontario e direttrice del Centro Interdisciplinare per la Ricerca nel Curriculum. Prima di entrare a far parte della Western University è stata professoressa presso la School of Child and Youth Care dell'Università di Victoria nella British Columbia, dove ora ricopre il ruolo di professore a contratto. È anche Senior Fellow di NORAG, Network per le politiche internazionali e la cooperazione nel settore dell'istruzione e della formazione. È co-direttrice del Pedagogist Network e co-direttrice della British Columbia Early Childhood Pedagogist Network. I suoi scritti e le sue ricerche contribuiscono al Commonwealth Research Collective e al Early Childhood Pedagogies Collaboratory. La sua ricerca, finanziata da Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, esplora le pedagogie sui cambiamenti climatici con i bambini e le relazioni dei bambini con i rifiuti materiali del nord e sud del mondo. È autrice e coautrice di oltre 40 articoli peer reviewed e di 6 libri, tra i quali The Commonwealth of Children and Animals, Relation Ethics for Entangled Lives, oppure Encounters with Materials in Early Childhood Education, o ancora Unsettling the Colonial Places and Spaces of Early Childhood Education e altri libri, è coeditrice dell'Open Access Journal of Childhood Studies e della serie di libri di Bloomsbury Feminist Thought in Childhood Research. Invito intanto Laura Pedroni ed Eloisa Di Rocco a venire qui con me sul palco e diamo la parola alla professoressa. Buonasera, professoressa.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. And I would also like to begin by thanking the Fondazione, sorry for the pronunciation, the Fondazione Reggio Children and the team at Remida for inviting me to participate in this panel, and importantly for organizing this conversation on sustainability. This week, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that we all know by IPCC, released the final synthesis report for the 6th assessment report, in which they clearly outline that in order to address human-caused climate change, we need to transition to a more sustainable way of life to create healthier and strong communities. The report also emphasizes that the moment to act is now. Otherwise, they say, we will miss our chance to create a more sustainable and just world. As an education researcher, I take this call seriously. As a human and social science discipline, education cannot ignore that human forces have fundamentally altered the planet's geobiospheric systems, triggering a cascade of ecological crises and threatening the future of life on Earth as we have known it, including our own species, the life of our own species. Education needs to face the fact that it is directly implicated in this ecological crisis. We know that despite efforts to promote education as key to achieving sustainable lives, the majority of education systems continue to prioritize workforce supply for economic growth over environmental sustainability. The fact that the world has the highest number of educated people in its history and yet is at the nearest to ecological breakdown, is a stark reminder that more of the same kind of education will only compound our problems. We are to imagine alternative ways of living with the earth, in kinship with the earth. It is time to step up to the challenge and fundamentally reconfigure the role of education and schooling, I think. And to do that, with my colleagues at the Commonwealth Research Collective, which is an interdisciplinary network of researchers that are concerned with our relations with the more than human world, animals, plants, the environment in general. We are attempting to reimagine and reconfigure education around the future survival of the planet. And to this end, I want to share in the remaining time that I have two interrelated proposals that our collective makes to education. The first proposal involves challenging humanism. We are to rethink our place in the world. When I say our, I mean humans. Who are we as humans? More provocatively, perhaps, we need to recognize that the humanist belief that our supreme rationality and the exclusivity of our intentional agency set us apart from and above the rest of the living world is actually a problem. We need to debunk the associated belief that humans can endlessly act upon the rest of the world with impunity, either to exploit its resources or to improve upon it at will. We are to reassess education's humanist knowledge traditions, resist the idea of human exceptionalism, and refuse the proposition of human dominion over Earth. It has become impossible to deny that humanist education has been co-opted by the myopic obsession with perpetual economic growth in the guise of human advancement. Humanist-inspired projects to achieve social justice, equality, and sustainability have been hijacked, unfortunately, by economic development and productivity agendas. Even more confronting, we in education have to acknowledge that by reiterating and perpetuating human-centric and exceptionalist preoccupations, education has become part of the problem and not necessarily part of the solution. Modern education systematically perpetuates human exceptionalism by positioning teachers and children as the agentic, all-knowing subjects and the world out there as the inert matter to be studied and be known about. Because educators, like everyone else, are well-schooled in this humanist exceptionalist logics, it is hard for us to accept, like Isabel Stengers says, that the world is not simply ours to study and act upon at will. It is hard to escape the self-fulfilling logics of human exceptionalism, to resist the heroic impulse to fix ecological crisis that we have caused by coming up with a smarter, bigger, and better humans to the rescue solutions. What the current ecological crisis teaches us is that we don't live and learn in autonomous human societies. Which are somehow outside of the natural ecological communities that we study. We cannot any longer rely on human ingenuity to fix and manage these problems as if we still have a foot outside of all these ecosystems. Ecosystems don't exist to serve and sustain us, and we cannot manage them to this end. So the second idea that we propose in the Commonwealth Sorry. Is that okay? Do I continue? All right. The second idea that we want to, that I want to propose today, and is in response to the first point, involves beginning the enormous task of radically reconfiguring our curricular and pedagogies in accordance with more than human, collective, and relational notions of agency. So the second idea in response to the first point involves beginning the enormous task of radically reconfiguring our curricular and pedagogies in accordance with more than human, collective, and relational notions of agency. Instead of relying on human ingenuity and technology as the ultimate fix for environmental problems, we can learn how to take our place as one of the many actors, makers, and shapers of life on Earth. We might resituate ourselves as terrestrial beings firmly and fully on the grounds of our cosmopolitical common worlds, as philosopher Latour says, with the full ecological consciousness that we are one of the many of this Earth's interdependent beings, entities, and forces. This approach can help us to adopt a much broader definition of what it means to belong, one that embraces everyone and everything, both living and non-living, and therefore encompasses more than human worlds. It gives us the opportunity to learn and practice articulations among multiple divergent worlds. This not only interrupts the principle of universality, but enables us to get on with the task of collectively assembling common worlds through networks of human and more than human actors. Instead of promoting human exceptionalism, we can depart from what many cultures, including many indigenous peoples around the globe, have reminded us for millennia. Agency is not something that is held and exercised exclusively by humans, but emerges as an effect of constellating human and non-human relations and forces. And we can learn this by seeing what is happening right now with climate change. Agency is collective, more than human, it's relational. So we can tap into the Earth's transformative powers because we cannot do it alone. The individualistic culture of the self is proving to be misleading in education. Collective dispositions can be the order of the day. Our educational practices can be characterized by an openness to the other, whether others means humans, other species, land, ancestors, or even cyborgs or machines. These open relations can constitute a convivial and reparative stance that, like Gibson and Graham note, welcomes surprise, entertains hope, makes connections, tolerates coexistence, and offers care for the new. This might entail the task of reframing learning beyond the subject-object divide, humans learning about the world, by focusing on worldly relations and encounters as inherently pedagogical, acknowledging that it is not only humans that teach and learn, and by mobilizing human curiosity to learn from what is already going on in the world, we can make a shift from only ever learning about the world to learning with the world. We can enthusiastically undertake the collective task of learning with those in our common worlds as a mode of remaking these worlds together, as a way to co-construct worlds that are more livable for all, human and non-human. It is only on this more than human common grounds that we might be able to open up to what education might mean beyond the human-centric conceits that got us to this ecological mess in the first place. It is only on this common grounds, together with all of the earthbound, that we might be able to learn the collaborative, collective, mutually recuperative lessons we urgently need for future survival in this planet. We cannot do it alone, though. It is time for learning to become with the world in which we are already inextricably entangled and embedded, and to which we will be always mortally indebted. So to end and summarize a little bit, perhaps we can let go of the grandiose fantasies of humans saving the environment and instead focus on the much more modest goal of collaboratively attending to the mutual flourishings of all, human and more than human, and on recuperating our damaged common worlds together, even if recuperation is only partial. Perhaps to achieve ecological justice and sustainability, we must attend to our relations with others in all their specificities. There are not universal relations here. Perhaps we can recognize the value of our relations with Earth others in the quest for ecological justice and take an ethical stance that deviates radically from the assumed moral high ground of human mastery and control. This ethical stance attends to the ongoingness of worldly relations and grapples with the question, what kinds of worlds might we recuperate together in the midst of the destruction that we are living? For me and for us in the Common Worlds Research Collective, it has become clear, and as we read in the IPCC report, that the answer to this question can only be enacted through the process of humans becoming with Earth others as we all recompose worlds together. Thank you.